But I think that, to be honest, in terms of my responsibility as an educator, the kinds of things that I'm trying to teach my students and get them to leave with, is that within these fields that they move into, what I would really like for them to be able to do is to know where they're coming from, to understand the implications of their positionality for the kinds of choices that they make, and to understand what the consequences of those are. What I'd also like to encourage them to do through my teaching is to get them to ask new questions, to conceptualize problems differently, to find opportunities out of failure. We have a lot of failure in South Africa, but we can't get depressed about it. We've got to find the opportunities in that and reconceptualize the idea of failure. And to do all of this with a sense of empathy, justice, respect, and above all, integrity. Thank you.
Good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that I was invited. I want to thank BICEP and especially Gautam. We've had a long relationship with students in doing their internships in Oaxaca. So they told me I got 8 minutes, so not only I have to sound intelligent in English, which is a challenge, but do it quickly. That's a double challenge. But I would need to set a certain background of what would we do in Oaxaca. And I would need to say we are speaking of a very, very rich state. Just remember that Mexico is already a hotspot in terms of conservation. Perhaps it ranks fourth at the world level by its number of plants and animals. And Oaxaca ranks first in the country. So we're speaking about a very, very rich state. And it's not only richness in terms of plants and animals, it's also the richest in the country by the for example, the number of ethnic groups. So we have to consider that. And next, we would need to say that recent trends are strongly affecting this amazing richness. And I would say recent trends that are affecting nature, for example, deforestation, but also social processes. And I want to stress that the same processes, the same causes are destroying nature and destroying culture. We're not only losing species, but we're losing languages, and we are closing windows different ways to look at the world that was different cultures mean. If I needed to describe the population features of Oaxaca, I would need to say it is most of the population comes from an Indian origin, mostly Indians, that they live in small communities, very scattered in the territory, and so they have a kind of rural relationship with nature. And I want to stress that being Indian and living in the country have meant being backwards. And I really think that we have to look at this in a different way. The Institute for Nature and Society of Oaxaca defines its mission as going along with communities in their conservation efforts. And there are at least 3 basic principles that I think are important in the ongoing discussion these days that I want to stress. We say we go along with communities. That means we try not to push them or pull them in any way, because that would mean that we know where to go. And that's, in these modern times, I think it's at least arrogant to say that we know where to go. We have a certain proposal, but we have to respect local autonomy. And I think this is a very important issue. And as leaders, we will need to do that. It's people who decides at the end of the day. Then when we say conservation efforts, we mean protecting natural processes, but as well enhancing social conditions. This principle is key for our organization. That is why we call ourselves Institutes for Nature and Society. We really think we cannot separate social and natural issues. And we do it in a collaborative way. This is the third principle. If I needed to describe very quickly what we do, I would say that we set the tables for all the actors to be seated at in a given region or for a concrete process. That means we need to include the good guys, the bad guys, and the ugly ones. Everyone has to be seated. Well, we consider ourselves the good guys, but perhaps someone thinks differently. We really need to work with the government, for example, but we think that what we do cannot be carried out from the government, but it's certainly an actor for good and for bad, a very important actor. So local communities, research institutions, local authorities, NGOs, all of them have to be seated at a kind of a table in which we decide what to do. So these are the principles of the Institute. Some key issues that we find that I think are useful for the discussion within this conference. First, we really think we need to change the dominant paradigms. It's not only about rethinking things, but especially remodeling our way of looking at things. And I will give just only two examples of that. Management. We have been taught that we need to manage nature, to manage watersheds. And I think that's, again, a very arrogant idea. And in fact, it's a daughter of the mechanisms in history. I really think I cannot even manage my backyard. So it's really arrogant to say we will manage this region or we will manage this watershed. Instead, we have to change this idea that we can control nature as a kind of machine that I can direct in a way. I think the metaphor of the planet Earth as a spaceship is it's wrong in that. It's very difficult to lead this kind of machine.